month ago, I got married, baby! I can't believe it. Like, I finally met the one. You know what I mean? I finally met the one to be my first ex-wife. Because we were getting married, moving in together. Because this is what happened. We moved in together. My shower now has 4 types of shampoo in it. All right? 4 types of shampoo. Do I look like a man that needs any shampoo? All right? I don't understand what you're doing here, babe. I don't like it. She has all these body washes and everything, and it's very confusing for me. Because when I was single, I didn't have a million body washes or a million shampoo bottles. I had 1 bar of soap, all right? 1 bar, not one brand, 1 bar. I had it for 30 years. My dad gave it to me. His grandfather gave it to him. My great-grandfather forged it in the Irish Springs of Peru. I don't know how that worked out.
What's going on, world? It's the ShoPowSho. So, of course, it's your dobro, the Babinka boy, the leader of the Holla Holla homies in the Center Gang. I'm Kuya P. Joining me today on today's episode is an actor, comedian, host. He does everything. He's a Mexipino. Shout out to my man from the Fab. Got to shout out the FilipinX Actors Barcada from Fab. My man, Erik Escobar. I'm going to shoot off the air horns right now, Erik. It's in post because you're a father now. You need to be able to hear the child. So I'll put it in post so I don't deafen you. All the love, my brother. How are you today, man?
I'm good. Make those air horns loud, baby, because I am a sleepy boy, and if he cries, sometimes I don't wake up. So, yo, more noise. I love it. We're alive. We're good. Hey, I'm a big wrestling fan. If I ever got a big WWE, AEW contract, I'm bringing you on as my manager, man. You just hyped me up so good. Oh, I feel so warm and fuzzy. Oh, I love it.
Hey, I love it. Let's go, man. You're the second comedian in the past 2 weeks to say, hey, do my intros. I'm gonna hold you to it. Next time I'm in Cali, man. I would love to bring you up on the stage because I am a wrestling fan too, and I want to get into that because I saw that you're a wrestling head. I definitely want to talk about that. But my man Ronnie Chang, I interviewed him for Interior Chinatown, and he was like, no, it wasn't Ronnie. It was Jimmy O Yang, the star of Interior Chinatown.
Hell yeah.
Who's another amazing comedian like yourself. And he was like, I'm coming to DC in like the next month or 2. And I was like, hey, he was like, you need to do my intro. I'm like, hey, Jimmy, say less. Like, let's go. I'm trying to do that. You know, I appreciate the notion, man. It's a privilege.
Got a lot of love for you. Got a lot of love for Jimmy. I will say I have better hair. I think maybe he's got that long one.
Hey, I'm with you, dog. Bald heads unite. Bald heads unite.
I like how this interview is just looking in a mirror. This is beautiful. This is what
you know what? When I was watching your special, everybody check out my man Erik's Mexipino comedy special on YouTube right now. I'm gonna have all his links in the description. When you brought up even in your act about how we lose our hair quick as Pinoys. It's real. So I was like, yeah, I'm with you, Erik. I feel it. I'm actually thinking about hair products though. I ain't gonna lie. My wife was like, she brought it up, and then I was like, nah. I look. It's the Stone Cold thing. I'm a wrestler guy. It looks cool, but at the same time, I got some other Pinoy friends that still have their hair, and I don't know. I've been debating. I don't know about you. I know we're going sidetrack right now.
No,
have you thought about it?
Well, the annoying thing about it is I feel like when we're young, we look young for a minute. You know what I mean? You see like 25, 30-year-old Filipino guys like, yo, you look 19, 20 years old. You look great. You look wonderful. But as soon as this goes, we turn into like titos by like 32. You know what I mean? Like we're immediately like almost Lolo mode. And I'm like, wow, this is a very small area of adaptation. This is a lot.
Yeah.
Did you lose it pretty young? I think I started losing my hair at like 18, 19. It was early for me.
Oh, no, I didn't lose. You know what? I thankfully, it was like right at the beginning of the pandemic where I was like, it was starting to bald here. Mm-hmm. The little, it wasn't balding, but it was like less. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I was like, let me just cut it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just weird. Let me just get rid of it all. I already had no hair on the sides because I don't know. I'm prior military, and so that I just like that look. I know that y'all West Coast Asians, y'all have it all different.
We do.
We like to shave on the sides because I'm also a hip hop guy, so it's like let me cut it. But then, yeah, it was weird. Anyway, we're sidetracking. We're talking about hair. I don't know why we talk about hair and baldness.
I was gonna say my favorite, and you've probably seen before. Have you ever seen those like Filipino guys or just people in general who are coming in from that sneak attack? They have that baldness coming from back, and they cut the sides, but they don't cut the front or the back. So it's like a mullet that like skips a generation. Well, this is a beautiful style, but not my thing.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's wild. Hair. You know what? Appreciate what you got, if or you don't got, and just rock with it. I think we're beautiful, bro. All brothers unite. But
Yeah.
I am kind of curious because I know, I would never get like the patched in thing like I see some people online do. But there's like apparently some creams that'll just bring it back naturally. I might try that.
They're out there. I feel like I've committed to the bit. You know what I mean? Once I shaved it all off, I'm like, I'm not going back. And also, everyone knows me as a bald guy. If one day I just sprouted out with a flat top, what's going on here?
Right. And it does save money on all the different hair products. Because like you, a note to my brother's amazing comedy act, my wife has all the hair products. She's a black woman, so she has all the products. And I have none of that. I just can wash my head.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't even wash it. I just stand in the shower, clean. All right, good. Let's go. Time for a meeting. Go to that job interview.
I love it. So for those Filipinos that love talking about that stuff, well, we gave you a little bit right there. The amazing Erik Escobar. Thank you so much, my brother. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you on. Shout out to our combined squad of the Fab, FilipinX Actors Barcada. That's kind of how me and Erik linked up. Just great to have you on and give you your virtual flowers. Good dude, my man. It's time for us to get to know each other a little bit more, and for my audience to know you a little bit more and dig into some of the history. Before we get into your full story, we love to show love to our people, our ates, our uncles, our moms, our father, everybody, everyone that came before, our ancestors. That's the word I was looking for. To see if what we are came from them, if it's in the DNA, if it's in the bloodline. It's in the bloodline. Was there actors, comedians, creatives that you're aware of before you stepped onto the scene and out of your mommy's stomach?
Yeah, for sure. What's so beautiful about right now, it can always be better. We're always fighting the good fight. It's gonna be better. But representation in TV, film, comedy, whatever it is super important, specifically for me, because when I was growing up, my dad loved comedy. I was doing theater. I knew about comedians. I knew about stand-up, and it was fun, but I never really felt like a hardcore connection to it. You know what I mean? Something I enjoyed, but I didn't connect with it. It wasn't until I actually heard Rex Navarrete.
That's my guy.
Back in the day, the OG. And it was so crazy because he was doing bits and he was talking about titas and he was talking about food and he was talking about stuff that I connected with on such a visceral level. I was like, oh my God, I get it. Like, this is cool. And I think seeing another Pinoy do something that I thought was cool made that bridge in my mind to be like, oh, I can do it too. Like, I didn't think it was a possibility until I saw one of us do it, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So shout out to Rex, because he's the OG, and he's a big reason why I felt doing stand-up was possible when I was a freshman, sophomore in high school. It was wild, absolutely wild.
I love that. Yes, he is a legend, but he's not fam. He's not fam. Or is he fam? Is he auntie, uncle?
We're not blood related, but being Filipino, I think two generations. We're all, you know what I mean?
We're all fans. So I know your dad's Mexican and your mom's Filipino. Yep. Do you know within them if it was for your, what can you tell us some family history? What kind of occupations they had, and were any of them in the arts that you now do for yourself?
Totally. What's something that's so beautiful about my background and my culture is being Filipino and Mexican, that Mexipino, just like what you're saying. It's cool because I got to get a little bit of both. But my father's side, I had my grandma, his mom, he was great. My grandfather passed away. And that side was great and wonderful, but just really wasn't as... there weren't as many of them as the giant Filipino contingent of my mom's side. Like Christmases, let's go to midnight mass, let's eat the lumpia, let's party it up, let's go to Ate's house, whatever. So I feel like I'm really grateful for that Mexican American heritage, but more so I was just like thrown into the fire of Filipinos, and Filipinos were who I grew up with, and that was my culture. My mom, it's interesting. I feel like a lot of parents want the best for their children, and sometimes they feel the best is like be an engineer, be a doctor, be a nurse, whatever it is. I think my mom really wanted that for me, especially coming over from the Philippines to create a better life for her family. But she always brings up that even though she was an accountant her whole life, when she was like 7 years old, she was in a play. She was in The Sound of Music in the Philippines. Like she was in this little play, her school put it on. And even though she was 7 or 8, she still has those memories. And I was like, oh, it was so fun to perform. It was so fun to get in front of an audience. And I think that when I started doing stand-up and that connection was sort of made, it wasn't like, oh, be a doctor or this is bad. It was like, oh, I know that magic that you feel. And if I want to create a better life for my family, have the happy son, I want you to feel that too. And it's really beautiful. It's cool. I think Filipinos in general, we love to party. We love karaoke. We're entertainers. And I think even if you're an accountant like my mom, there's a little bit of that fire in you. And it's so exciting to have that encouragement from her.
Definitely. Yeah. So I knew it was in there. And that's where we're always kind of like, we like to dive into that. Well, first, number one, pay respects to our family, where a lot of us come from, because that's where we are. We're people. So it's there. I love that. So thank you for sharing that. And we're going to dive into a little bit of that, because if you haven't seen an episode before, Erik, I like to walk through life, and then we get into like what we're doing now and promoting, just to have that connection and to have that shared story and have people relate. Because I think before we celebrate wins, it took a lot of losses, things that we learned along the way to get there. And I want to give that hope to young Erik Escobar that's out there, that might be out there. You know what I'm saying? That, you might be going through it right now, but power through it, brother. We got you. You're going to come out stronger on the other end. So
personally, for me, I've always felt comedy is my passion. Comedy is what I love. Comedy is what I've dedicated my life to. It's what I do every day. It's my career. And I think the most important part of comedy, the thing that makes it work the best, is that connection. If you have fire jokes and you're a great performer and you go in front of a room, you might have a good set. If you might have an okay act, but you can connect with that crowd understands you, they hear your story, they know who you are, you're going to have a way better set than the guy who's maybe, super good at like technique or whatever. And yeah, I feel like that connection, that understanding of like, I felt that too. I also went through that, or, oh, I went through that, but in a different way. Same, but different. It brings us closer. So I'm all about just getting into it, learning about it, and seeing how the rest of us can connect with each other.
Exactly. Well said. That's what we're doing here, man. I appreciate that. As you know, it's that energy as empaths. As creators, we're very much empaths. Some may not to admit it, but it's that energy exchange, especially on stage performers. We directly feed off of that. And when you can see that authenticity, that's what cements it. And we're like, okay, that's my guy, because I know it's coming from a real place. So let's spark it off, my brother. Kuya, Erik in the building. Let's go from the jump off, coming out the womb to age 5. What would your parents tell me about a young Erik Escobar? Born in Cali. You don't have to say exactly where. We don't want to give the hackers some information that they can pull off of us. But let's start from there. Let me know what they would tell me about a young you, and what you can remember about a young Erik Escobar from 1 to 5.
Most definitely. I feel like something my parents always said whenever I was an only child, no brothers, no siblings, no sisters. Whenever people were like, oh, you're going to have another kid, or, is he going to have a sibling eventually? My parents would always be like, oh, one's enough. And I think one's enough is a great way to explain me from 0 to 5. I was a big personality. I was a lot to handle. I was a fun-loving kid. You know what I mean? I loved life, and I loved it in a really, really big way. And I think something in that era that kind of looking back on it is like, whoa, that was totally a thing, is my dad, who's an amazing dude. I love him very much. He loved comedy. He loved jokes. The guy had like 2 jokes, not 3, not 4, but more than one. He had like 2 jokes, and he would tell that to every single person that he met, or every single new relationship, or every single, a neighbor or whatever. He would tell these jokes. And at such a young age, from 3 years old, 4 years old, I was able to see that power of connection. I was able to see that power of humor. It doesn't matter if you don't know someone. It doesn't matter if you're beefing with someone. If you can make them laugh with your 1 joke, your 2 jokes, you can still hang out. And I still try to hold that to this day, where it's, humor is such an open door. It's such a great way to connect with other people, even if someone is completely on the other side of the religious, political, whatever spectrum it is, and you guys completely disagree. If you can laugh, you share a common language. You can both grab a beer. You can both have a good time to each other. And I'm so glad that idea and that sentiment was kind of put in me at a very young age.
That's dope. That's beautiful. So your dad was the first one to introduce you to comedy.
Yeah. He like I said,
that's beautiful.
He'd be like, here's this joke. I'm like, all right.
Amazing. So he introduced you to comedy. Was there a favorite comedian you both shared outside of him cracking you up? Was there somebody like he would like Jackie Gleason? I'm going showing my age a little bit. I'm not that old, but who were the comedians that he would get you into at that time period, if you can remember?
So my dad, he's great, but he's lived a life, man. He was born in he's in his 80s right now. So he was born, I think, in the 40s. Oh, something like that. But he definitely had an older taste.
Okay. So Jackie Gleason ain't too far off.
I remember being young. We had a TV, we had a VHS thing, but in our VCR, we only had maybe like 4 or 5 VHS tapes, and one of them was Laurel and Hardy. I don't know if you're familiar with Laurel and Hardy. Yeah. Old school, Hal Roach back in the day, a little bit slapsticky, but also big character actors. You had, Laurel, who was kind of this very sweet, you wish he knew a little better, but he didn't kind of guy. You have Hardy, who's this, Southern guy with a big personality. And I think rewatching those VHS tapes over and over and over and over, I was just watching it because I thought it was silly. I was also watching it because I see it with my dad and I watch him laughing. And I obviously be like, oh, wow, this is making my dad laugh. This is cool. But, I was probably in a weird sort of schooling of comedy at that point. I was learning about characters. I was learning about silliness. I think one of the biggest things from Laurel and Hardy that I kind of still take from that my dad loved is there's a lot of heart. There's a lot of sweet. I think when you do comedy, a lot of people will be like, oh, when you get hecklers, are you mean to them? Do you roast them? Are you like an aggressive guy? Like, are you edgy? And I think a big part of my comedy is kind of like Laurel and Hardy. I like that heart. I like that sweetness. I like that silliness. I like that goofiness. And for me, that's just like the stronger move that works for me. And if it wasn't for my dad showing me Laurel and Hardy when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, hey, I might be like a rough, edgy, mean comic nowadays.
You know what? I can understand that. That's cool. So that also puts me where you're at. So born and raised in California in that time period, 0 to 5, Mexican woman meeting a Filipino woman. Mexican man meeting a Filipino woman. Excuse me. So laid back. So that seems like kind of like laid back type atmosphere. So what was it like growing up in the area you were at? He introduced you to comedy. Tell me about like what you were doing in that time period, 0 to 5. Were you all moving around a lot? What were you learning about the world in that time period before we get into like 5 to 10 and going into school and all of that?
For sure. One, shout out to Gardena, California, born and raised in that beautiful town in the South Bay. It's no longer around, but I went to Gardena Valley Christian School when I was a little preschooler, when I was a kindergartner. And looking back on it, something that me and my friends who are still friends to this day from kindergarten, from preschool, that we always talk about and we're always grateful for, is we had a super diverse school. I mean, like, it wasn't like, primarily Asian, primarily Latino, primarily Black, primarily white. I mean, like, it was crazy the equity of cultures and races there. You know what I mean? I had friends growing up who were Japanese, who were Black, who were Samoan, who were Tongan, who were Filipino, who were white. Giant spectrum. And I think when you're a kid, everyone's just a person. You know what I mean? There's, oh, here's my friend, whatever. But growing up, I feel so grateful to have grown up in such a diverse city, and in a city where there's all these cultures meet and mesh and come together, because it exposed me to so many cultures, so many foods, to so many just things people did for traditions. And it was so awesome to have that as a little kid, because sometimes when you're a little kid, you only see like one type of person or whatever. Then you grow up, you're like, oh, what's this? I feel really lucky to just have like a giant plate of everything when I was growing up.
I love that. And that's a perfect segue to what I want to introduce now into that equation. Because like you said, everybody's upbringing isn't the same. And this is why we love to bring this up. And because this is ShoPowSho, where we're celebrating our Filipino-ness. in that time period, is that when you first discovered that, hey, I'm Filipino, also, hey, I'm Mexican? What was that like, finding out what that labeling that society puts on us? We're all human beings, and I love that you had that diverse human experience at that school, but racism creeps up, and these identifiers come in. But then we can either take it this way, where we have self-hate, because we've talked about self-hate as Filipinos on the show before, but also the pride steps in, sometimes maybe not till later. And then can you tell me about like race interplaying into that, and did it at that time, or did it come in later as we go into your life story, Erik?
I honestly feel like it was more later, probably high school, when I really had that like, oh, identity. What is this? It's kind of interesting because I feel growing up, my dad was a very picky eater. He was an extremely picky eater. The guy still eats like 5 things. You know what I mean? He eats like well-done hamburgers, toast, coffee, and scrambled eggs. That's it. You know what I mean? Very meat and potatoes guy. So growing up, we ate a lot of American food, regular food, just, nothing fancy. But if there was ever an opportunity for my mom to take me to Seafood City, or for us to go to Chowking or Jollibee, it was wild how like celebratory of an experience that was. Eating Filipino food was definitely my intro into like, I am so proud and I love my culture so much. Jumping a little bit forward, I got a great partner. I got a lovely wife. She's my best friend. She's my favorite person in the whole second. Oh, they're tied. I have a newborn too. I'm tied. But what's crazy, our first date, I remember picking her up, and I had this plan. I was going to take her to this Filipino restaurant in Cerritos called Noipits. And I pick her up, and I'm like, hey, she's full Filipino. I'm like, hey, let's go to this nice Filipino restaurant. Or if you want, we can walk around downtown Disney. And she was like, let's go to downtown Disney. And I asked her about it later. I'm like, well, why didn't you want to go to the Filipino place? Why do you want to go there? And she's like, you don't get it. I eat Filipino food every day. For me, celebrating is eating a steak. It's getting barbecue. It's going out for sushi. And it's crazy how we were so opposite. Because for me, eating a Filipino meal is like, wow, I never get this. Let's go and celebrate, because I was half and we didn't get it that much. For her being full, she ate it every day. She's like, nah, I love rice. So I don't need to eat. All right, we don't have to do adobo. Let's get in and out. And it's funny how food was such a big point of pride for me when I was a little kid. And to see her perspective on it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But whoa.
I love that. That's real talk. That's real talk. I grew up largely in that kind of that vein until I learned stuff in this past year that changed my whole life's perspective. That's for a whole nother show. But yeah, I understand that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, growing up, it's weird because sometimes being half mestizo, you feel like, oh, I'm not Latino enough to hang out with, the Mexican kids. Oh, I'm not Filipino enough to hang out with the Asian crowd. And I feel like it's interesting because for me, one way to kind of bridge that gap was talking about food. You know what I mean? Like talking with like the Filipino girl. Oh, wow, your mom made you fresh lumpia. Oh, cool. Wow, that's another thing. Or going out when I had, my friends who were Latino or Mexican be talking about like our favorite foods. And I love food. I love to eat. We all love to eat. And I think it's something where it's like, it's such a strong identifier. It's a strong point of pride that I have for my community. And it's cool how it is for a lot of other people too.
Definitely. I love that. Agreed. Let me tell you something. Maybe you can relate to this too. Just kind of sidebar, but still in the same lane. Have you ever seen The Debut with my man Dante Bosco? Shout out to my man Dante. I'm sure you have.
With my Filipino cousins when they in like the 90s.
Well, but you remember the film, I think, right? And he brings like his white friends over. And he's a little embarrassed. Well, he's mad embarrassed because they're smelling the patis. When you're in a Filipino household, because you smell the patis, you see the wood forks, wood spoons, you see the ding-a-ling thing in the crate barrel man. But what was crazy, and the reason I'm bringing this up is, speaking of food, again, food brings us together. Like you, depending on what area you are in the country, you're either mistaken for Mexican or Puerto Rican on the East Coast, Cuban in Florida, So when I was with other friends and I thought they were Hispanic, or I thought they were Hispanic, we didn't know what we were. We're just friends. We didn't care about that stuff, right? But then I remember one time, you just made this memory happen. going into this one friend's house, I thought was Mexican, bro. But as soon as I smelled the patis, because it's a distinct smell, bro, I was like, shut the fuck up, bro. You're Filipino?
Yeah.
I love you, man. Like, can your mom make me to? So
secret agent.
It brings us as people, as culture together, and it's something again that unites us with our food. I love it. I love it.
Oh man, where was I? I was doing a show. Oh, I was in Boise, Idaho. Very Caucasian part of the country. If you didn't know, they love their potatoes. I did a show, and there was this big laugher in the back. After the show, he comes up to me, black guy, and we start talking, and then we start talking about food. He starts talking about Filipino food, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, oh, actually, my mom's Filipino, my dad was Jamaican. And I'm like, that's crazy. The next day, he invites me over to his house, and we have Filipino food. Complete stranger. I was in this area where I didn't really know anyone. And just like, and it was also probably because we were the only two Filipino guys in all of Boise at the moment. But it was like, yo, my people, come on down. I'll make you some food. And it was wild. It was a sneak attack because the guy looked Jamaican. You know, I was like, what's going on? Also, another quick thing you're talking about, DC. I don't know if it's still there. I hope it is. If not, shout out to a little place called Pogie Boy. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah. I don't know if it's still around, but yes, I'm familiar.
I remember working in DC, and I would maybe try to go to the Smithsonian Zoo. I would try to check out some stuff during the day because I got shows at night. But one trip out there, I discovered Pogie Boy, and I swear to God, at any point of the day, I would eat there every day for lunch and then get a snack there for dinner. But I could go in and just feel that family. You know what I mean? I would sit at the bar and I would talk to this guy next to me about food or about our culture. I would get in line and be like, oh, wow, they got a lumpia burger. That's crazy. Someone would be like, oh, lumpia burger. I didn't see that. And then we would start talking about our favorite lumpia. And it's wild how that just brings us together. I love it, man. I love it.
Love it. Shout out to our peoples out there. You know what? Since we're on the food thing, as you heard from my intro, I like to say it's all about food. The Adobros, the Babinka boys, the leader of the Hala homies that's in a gang. What is your favorite Filipino dish, bro?
Ooh, I like kare, but I'm a big oxtail man. All right. Some people make it without the oxtail, without the meat. That's fine. That's great. But if you're talking about my favorite, that oxtail kare, I'm not a bagaong fan. I don't know if I'm gonna make some people upset, but that salty hey, if you love it, you eat it up, have mine. All right. You can have mine. It's a lot. I discovered a few years back, some places out here will do what they call a crispy kare. So they'll give you like a crispy pata with the kare sauce on the side.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. I don't know if that takes the #1 spot because I love the OG, but that's a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing our people have done, and God bless crispy kare.
I love it. Awesome. All right, we'll get off of the food, but as we all know, it brings us together. So if you're out there listening, you have a great dish in Erickson Town, please hit him up. I'm sure he wants to enjoy some good kare.
Yeah. Don't do a show. Don't follow me on Instagram. Don't support me. Just feed me. All right. That's the only support I want. Don't worry about checking out comedy. Just, hey, if you got a nice bowl of sinigang, invite me over.
Let's go. And I'll be there too, because I'll bring my dish. I love it.
Oh yeah.
All right. So we're in we went through 1 through 5. We're 5 to 10. We're now growing up. We've got a great school that's diverse. We're somewhat identifying who we are. What are we into now? Have things changed? Your dad introduced you to comedy, but what were you watching? What are you enjoying as a kid growing up with friends? Were you playing sports? What were the early dreams of Erik Escobar?
You know what? 5 to 10 is an interesting era because I feel like a lot of us are just being kids from 5 to 10, but also I feel like I did sort of lack a sense of I don't want to say identity, but from 5 to 10 I didn't know what I liked. I didn't have a thing. It wasn't like I loved soccer, or it wasn't like I loved baseball or played piano. I bounced around, did a couple things. To be honest, from 5 to 10, the thing I loved the most was probably Pokemon. I was like, wow, this is what I love. That's great. But other than that, it was interesting. It was kind of this period of not really knowing who you are, but also you're not supposed to know who you are when they're that young. You're figuring it out. It wasn't until, not to jump ahead, a little bit after that, when I discovered music. And I think music was a thing where I was like, oh, this is this is what I am. This is what I like. This is what I enjoy. But before that, I was just a child floating in the world, trying my best.
All right, so let's move into there. So we're going to go from 10 to 18, graduating from high school, and then maybe going into college if that was your path or if you did something else. So we're now in the informative school years where we can take classes to help us in the path that we want to go, but we're also exploring yourself. We're maturing. We're learning about men, women, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. And music, and also want to know wrestling. When did that inject into you? Take me on this journey from 10 to graduation.
Yeah, for wrestling, let's get into that real quick before we get into the other stuff, because too sweet, baby. I actually got into wrestling because she's still one of my best friends to this day. I had a friend from kindergarten all the way through high school, but we're young teens, we're 12 years old, we're developing crushes. I had this big crush on her, and she loved Lita. Do you remember Lita from
Who didn't love Lita?
We all loved Lita. We loved Lita, and we loved how her pants went a little low, and we're like, oh man, I'm 12 and this is making me feel things. We loved Lita, and I remember I wanted to be cool, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna start watching wrestling because she likes wrestling, and I'm gonna talk about wrestling to her. And then I got over the crush, and I'm like, but I still love Lita. I still love the WWF. I still love Megan. You go over there. Oh, what are the Hardys up to this week? So it was kind of weird. That was my intro to it, just trying to impress a girl. But going back to music, I think for me, when I was maybe 12, 13 years old, we had a little worship band. I went to a Christian school, and they needed a bass player. So I was like, oh, I think I had a guitar, and I was like, oh, let me try out bass. So I started playing bass, and I think, not to generalize Pinoys or generalize Filipinos, but I think we love performing. And for me, I love performing personally because there's something really special about that validation. I always compare the arts, performances, comedy especially, to kind of like having a job, where if you have a job and your boss goes out of their way, goes out of his or her way to tell you, great job on that, great report, you did amazing on that, when they didn't have to, unprompted, that feels great. It's such a validating experience for someone to be like, you know what? I think what you're doing is amazing and you're doing really well at it. Comedy, I feel, is the exact same thing times 100. Because when I tell a joke, the audience is my boss, and they're telling me that I'm doing good at my job. If they laugh viscerally, subconsciously, just through it, they're telling me I did well. When I'm not doing well and they're silent, oh, that hurts. That hurts a lot. But that validation of like, you're doing something and we like it is something that I was really exposed to initially through music. I would play in this worship band. I would play in the band at school. I'd have side little things with friends who were playing stuff. And to do a show and see people smile, see people dance, have people come up to you and be like, oh, we loved that. That validation felt so good. And I initially found that validation through playing music. So I was in a band for a while. Going into high school, started more bands. I was a big metal guy. So I was in like metalcore bands, a couple punk bands. And I think what I really enjoyed about that validation and that we love you and that was cool, but you had to manage it sort of with a team. You have to manage it with your band. You have to be like, let's organize these shows. Are you guys free this day? Can we do this thing? How are we going to transport the drums? How are we going to get a rehearsal going? When I kind of discovered comedy, it was all that, but it was just me. I didn't have to rely on anyone else. I didn't have to worry about anyone else. My initial whoop into comedy was improv. I was playing football in high school, typical California story. One day it rained, so football practice was canceled because us Californians, we can't be doing anything in the rain. So I was waiting for my dad to pick me up from school, and I ended up popping into the theater, saw an improv workshop, kind of did a couple of games with them. The next day, I quit football, started doing improv, and it was just so fulfilling. It was just so fun. It filled my cup. I loved it. Did improv for a long time, did theater, and then after that kind of happened, I slowly started discovering stand-up, and I was like, the magic that I feel with music, the magic I feel with improv, the magic I feel with theater, stand-up is that, but it's the thing I was looking for. It's the thing that I found specifically for me. When we're kids, sometimes we'll take an art class or do a theater class. because it's the only artistic or creative thing available. So we're like, oh, that's cool. As we get older, we're like, oh, I love that, but I really like ceramics, or I really love screenwriting. So I did all these things because they were opportunities that were offered. But once I got older and discovered like, oh, this specifically is my thing, that's when stand-up started getting to take off.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that so much, man. I echo that and hope everyone out there is listening and following this and finding that niche that they really totally enjoy. So I had so many questions as you're going, but I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I just tea, a very strong cream of Earl Grey. David C. So it's very caffeinated, and I am having a great time. ShoPowSho, baby.
Let's go. All right. So beautiful. Thank you for giving us your genesis of becoming a comedian through that. So because you're a performer, because you performed in this church band and all of that, was there any nervous energy when it was just you solo? Or were you already just comfortable because of being on stage?
There was, but also with that comes a lot of beauty, because I feel like with improv, let's take improv or music, for example. I know that's your thing. Hell yeah, keep at it. For me, I felt like, let's talk about improv. When you're on an improv team and you have a good show, it feels like a 10 when you have a great show. It feels great. When you have a bad show, it feels like a 1. That's just how I feel. Stand-up was that same type of thing, but it's between -100 and +100. So when I'm doing stand-up by myself, when I bomb, it feels horrible because everything I did was just me. I failed. I want to cry. I'm crying in the shower. I'm going to eat extra rice tonight to eat away my feelings. It feels so much, and you feel those losses so hard. But oh my Lord, when you win, and it's just you, and it's just your content and just your thing, it's a +100. You won't be able to sleep that night. You'll be up for a few days off the high. You'll be like almost like just jittery because you're so amped up and the adrenaline is going. And I think for me, it was so fun to do music and do improv, but stand up, the stakes just felt so much bigger personally for me. And it was a thrill. And going back to wrestling, I think that's why so many comics like wrestling. Because for us, if I have a bad set, I'm pretty sad. If I have a good set, I feel great. When you're a wrestler and you're in front of 10,000 people, if you have a good set, oh my Lord, that must feel amazing. 10,000 people chanting your name, booing you if you're the heel, cheering if you're the face. When you have a bad set, you might die. If you're a wrestler and you have a bad night, you could break your arm, you can get a concussion. And I think as comics, we look at wrestling and we're like, oh, they're doing what we're doing, but times a billion. That's crazy. I love that.
You know that pop.
That pop is.
We understand that pop. That just is it's addictive. It's like crack. Not that I know crack, but it's just everything. It's just everything. It's the most human, personal experience you can get directly from someone. I want to bridge just that to what you were kind of just saying when you hit, when you bomb or when you have blocks, to just give some pro tips to kind of add this in there with this interview to anyone out there that is trying to go on this trajectory. What do you do? What is Erik Escobar's pro tips for when he hits a creative block or he all of a sudden gets those jitters on stage, or when you bomb, what you do to overcome that, in the moment or the following day, to just feed off of that, to just then continue that drive and that push forward?
A bomb is a bad day at work. If you're creative and you're trying to do it, yeah, we're doing it because we're fun. We sacrifice a lot from it, but at the same time, it's a job. It's work. So if you bomb, it's a bad day at work. And if someone has a bad day at work, they try to keep that at work. They try not to affect that. They try not to let it affect their personal life. And it's tough because there's so much person in it. There's so much of you in it. So you're really kind of like doing this thing that isn't work. It's fun, but you almost got to view it that way. When work happens, it's work. When your life happens, it's life. And also, I'm a big believer in that if I have a good set, if I crush it, that's fun. That's super fun. Did I learn anything? Maybe. I had a good time. If I have a bad set, there's so many opportunities to learn lessons, what you did wrong, what worked, what didn't work. You're going to have another set. if you bomb on Thursday, you might kill on Friday. Even better, if I'm working 2 shows at a club on a weekend, I might bomb Saturday early show and then kill Saturday late show an hour later. So it's one of those things where you can't really, I don't know, you can't really take it too personally, because if it upsets you and if it's a lot, let that drive you. But it's going to happen. And in an hour, in a day, you're going to have another good set, or hopefully in a few days, you know, if you go through some bombs. There's nothing that is in this game. I feel like the permanentness of everything is very loose and it's very fleeting. So be grateful for the one great set you had. Be grateful for the one bit of crowd work you did. Be grateful for people telling you you're great. And when it's not like that, focus on how you can do better, but just really be grateful for the present, and try not to be like, I have this one thing and I have to extend it. No, it's live in the now.
Agreed. So are you taking, once you come off of the stage, are you taking mental notes of what you just experienced to then just clock that for later, and like getting off the side, no noise, music, taking a drink, or are you writing some notes down? How do you kind of clear the cobwebs a little bit, to just, mentally get the focus back to center?
Everyone has a different vibe on it. I heard from another comic who worked with Ali Wong that I guess Ali had 2 sets. She was headlining, there were 2 shows in a night, and let's call it a 7 and a 9. So Ali did her 7 o'clock headlining set, so at 45 an hour. Then afterwards, maybe talk to people, sold their merch, but immediately went in the green room and then listened to that hour and took notes before she went up for the next show.
Whoa.
So it was literally like in real time, what worked, what didn't work, what was this thing, what was that thing. I'm not as aggressive as that. I'm kind of more like, I kind of look at it in terms of like wins and losses. And it's like, all right, cool. What were some good things that worked? If I can say 2 or 3 things, great. What were some things that didn't work that I can work on? Boom. I have that locked in. I got my next set. Let's go. I learned this thing from Ralphie May used to do it a lot. Ralphie May is a great comic, RIP. He was amazing, but he used to talk about how he would do like a point system for his sets. So for every new joke, you get 3 points. For every new tag, new add-on for a joke, you might get a point. For every bit of crowd work, you might get a point. And I always try to do a version of that and have a minimum number of points every time I go up. So I know my jokes that work. I can rest on my laurels and do that set forever. But if I can at least get 10 points every show, where it's 3 points for every new joke I do, that's a way I kind of categorize, where it's like, I know what works, but in that point system, did I achieve what I need to achieve? And within that, what was the sauce? You know what I mean? Did it go well? What can you adjust? How can I change it up? So I always try to hold myself accountable to do new things, because if you're just doing the same set over and over and over again, you're not going to grow. Force yourself to write. So that's the way that I kind of like, all right, cool. What worked? What didn't work? And what did I do new? Just so I have something to work on moving into the next set.
Love that. I want to return to that. I want to get back into the comedy pro tips for those aspiring comedians out there. Thank you, Erik. So we're in school. We're in that school time period. We're graduating, or we're getting ready to graduate. You told us you were in choir band. You were in football. What position, by the way? Were you playing?
You know what? I was a lineman, defensive, offensive, and I still feel like since I played football, I'm not fully aware how football works. I feel like I joined because I was a big guy, and it was like, you should do football. I'm like, okay. But even when I was in there, I was just doing it to do it. It was great. It was fun, but it wasn't until I found theater where I was like, my passion. My father was proud. Oh, you're gonna do theater and football? Great.
All right, so I was curious about that too, and I do remember from your set that you were a bigger guy. Because when I played football, I was still short Filipino guy with all these tall, and I was playing wideout, more so wing back, tight end, if you will. It was a wing T offense back in like the 90s. So just, the lone Filipino guy who wasn't tall, like all the other black guys, like we're the runners and the wide receivers. But I wanted to play football.
What's it called? You have the low center of gravity. They can't knock you down, baby. You're already.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I got out because of a girl. I wanted to, we're ladies guys, well.
Yeah, I feel you.
Okay, so we were getting into the arts in high school. We're getting ready to graduate, and you've spoken this, I think, also in your act as well. As Filipino parents, well, Mexipinos in your household, um, while it's okay to be in the arts in school, when we go off to college, they want us to be doctors, engineers, lawyers. What happened when you graduated? I kind of already know where you went, but if we can talk to that, what was the career path? You loved the arts and you loved comedy and stand up, but did that take hold of what your major was going to be and where you chose to go to school? Can we go off into that, and then we're going to venture forth? Obviously graduating, and then to now and more.
Mm-hmm. So I was always a big fan of theater, was always a big fan of the arts. So I knew that was like a strong passion for me in life at a young age, which I'm grateful to have kind of self-realized when I was younger. Something I'm also very grateful for in high school, my parents were very involved with our church, and they were very involved specifically with our outreach ministry, where they would make sandwiches and lunches for the homeless. We would, spend a whole morning making sandwiches, making lunches, put them in the back of a van, drive around Skid Row, drive around downtown, and literally just pass them out. There might be some missions. There might be some areas that, some centers where we would go and be like, hey, here's 100 lunches. You know what I mean? Pass it out to who needs to pass it out. So two big things for me when I was younger was service, specifically to people who were dealt kind of a tough card. Big believer in second chances, and the arts. So I wanted to figure out a way where I can bridge those two things. When I was 18, I started working with this great organization called the Unusual Suspects Theater Company. I still work with them to this day when I can, when I'm not on the road, when I'm around. And they actually do improv, theater, playwriting, performance workshops for kiddos who are incarcerated, who are in the juvenile detention system, and also for schools that are extremely underserved without arts programs. So I really fell in love with this idea of being able to work where I can do my art, but also serve. And using my art, that identity that I gained through being an artist, giving that to kids who were dealt a tough card, who maybe, didn't have a support system and wanted community and end up, joining a gang or a crew because that was the community that gave them love. And they don't know any better. You know what I mean? You're just trying to find your way in the world, and to show them like, hey, that's one sense of community, but you could also play this improv game, crack a joke, write a play, perform, and receive that love, receive that validation, that laughter that I received as a comic. That was really important to me. So I did a double major in a social work and theater. I really wanted to do that. I was doing that for a long time, ended up transferring out, kind of did a self-designed major at Whittier College, where I did social work, business, theater, the arts. And I really knew that if comedy didn't work out, or if I didn't do stand-up, that was the path that I wanted to go down. Also, for a quick minute, I love music. I was working in the music industry. I was a marketing rep. It was super fun. It was great. So when I graduated, I kind of had these three paths of where I should go. For a couple of years, for about a year, I worked in the music industry, which was super fun. I always was checking into the Unusual Suspects, volunteering, doing whatever I could, trying to do other volunteering in the area where I could use my skills as an artist, as an improviser, as a comic to serve people and show them they have a great voice, show them they can be confident, so amazing. And then the third route of, I want to do stand-up. So I kind of did all three concurrently. I would work all these side jobs. I would work any little job that I could just to make money. I would do background acting work. I would volunteer here. And I would kind of do all those things. Eventually, the music industry kind of faded out. And I was like, that's great. That's fine. I got these two things. And then eventually, even though I'm still involved, I was doing less service-based work because I was starting to get on the road, starting to do stand-up, doing guest sets, hosting all around the country. And I feel like I slowly kind of found my path after I graduated college in stand-up. And when I graduated, it was like, I can get a job, which is cool and that's fine. Or I could take a dice roll on just going comedy full time. I took the dice roll. It took forever. There was a lot of sleeping in closets. There was a lot of sleeping on Frank's couches. There was a lot of like, what am I going to eat? But I'm very grateful that that life kind of worked out that way. And now I get to do stand-up comedy full-time, act, do improv. It's the best, while also still knowing that service is a big passion of mine, and volunteering and putting in that work where I can.
Yo, let's go. Erik Escobar in the building.
Here I am.
Love it, dude. I love that. Thank you. That's amazing. That's amazing, man. Just what a beautiful journey. And thank you for sharing all that. I had so many little different questions pop up throughout that. I'm trying to bring it back. Number one, I love the usual suspects, working with and kids that need second chances. And there's a beautiful film. If you ask me on a different day, it might be something different. But my two favorite films this year is The Substance and Sing Sing. If you haven't seen Sing Sing, highly recommend it. Coleman Domingo is the star in it. It's about a theater program in a penitentiary, which is like this huge. It's kind of like what you're doing and have done with Usual Suspects, where they bring the arts to the prisons, and it's kind of like a reformative way for these kids these incarcerated folks to find them way back out of the system and into the general public. And it's just so beautiful. So highly recommend that. You just brought that notion to mind, and definitely recommend that, because I think the arts is such a healing way for people that we've all made bad choices, but they've found themselves now in this position, how it can bring them back and censor people back against where they need to be. So just beautiful. Where was I? We're learning the way of the world. To get to know where you're at, and like you said, you're sleeping on couches, you're doing this, that, and the third. What are those lessons learned until you found what you needed to do in order to get, to the path where you're at now? But we're still ever learning. We're still creating our life story right now. What are just some big pro tips from Erik Escobar that we can throw it back at? We kind of shined a little bit about, when we hit blocks, but what are the tips that we learned along this way dealing with comedy stores, the Comedy Store, or what I'm like, event spaces where they're hiring you out, that maybe sign this contract first, get paid at least half up front. What are some pro tips that my man Erik Escobar, and merch sales, don't deal with these people. And I love that hat, by the way.
I love it too. I have a couple Erik Escobar hats, and I was like, we're gonna go with this one too. Also, before I give the pro tips, I want to shout out, I always wear a suit on stage on my suit coat. I was like, let me dress up, but instead of a suit, I have a Filipino Disney.
That barong is killing it, sir. That barong is killing it. I got a similar looking one as well.
Whoop, there's a little Mickey Mouse. I love it. I love Disney. But pro tips, let's get into it. I feel like Amy Poehler's got a good quote where I think it's something along the lines of great people do great things before they're ready. And I feel like be prepared as much as you can, do as much as you can to be ready. But there's going to be times when you feel inadequate. There's going to be like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is my crowd. I don't know, whatever. And that's fine. That's okay. You know what I mean? If you didn't put yourself in those positions, you wouldn't grow. I like quotes. Another Conan O'Brien quote that I love. If you work hard and you're nice to people, great things will happen. Everyone that you will come in contact with is a human being. Treat them with respect. You don't know what they're going through. They might be a little salty, a little weird. Maybe they have some stuff going on at home. Maybe they're not feeling well. So everyone you interact with, show them some love. And if you don't like them, thank you, goodbye, smile, nod, wave. I can't tell you how many comics that I worked with in 2008, 2009, 2010, who I didn't see for 10 years, who I would pop up and go to a club in New Hampshire or Georgia or Washington, and I'm opening for them or they're opening for me. You know what I mean? Like, the people you meet, the relationships you build, you might not talk to them every day. You might not talk to them every month, every year, but they will, and they might come back into your life. And you want to make sure those vibes are good. You want to make sure everyone you're interacting with can walk away and being like, that person, Erik Escobar, good people. Because you never know. They might be looking for a comedian for their corporate event, or they might be looking for someone for something over here. And they might be like, oh yeah, that person, that lady, that really nice human being. So just try to keep your reputation clean. Rep it good. Last but not least, get paid. I think with our passion, we love it so much. A lot of comics, me, when I was starting out, I just wanted to get on stage. I just wanted to tell my jokes. You're not paying me? That's fine. Let me just do it. But I honestly feel like a lot of artists, we put the passion over the work. And I feel like if we all make money, then we all make money. If I'm a comedian and someone asks me, hey, what's your rate? And I'm like, I'll do it for free. Every other comedian who does that show works with that person after you. That person's going to be like, oh, they'll work for free. We don't have to pay them that much. We have someone else who can work for free. And I think artists just got to hold themselves to a higher standard, get paid, make sure we're all talking about money. So you know how much I'm making. I know how much you're making. We're all having that dialogue so we can all make more money in the future. In comedy, we're still getting rates that we were getting in the 80s. You know what I mean? In the 90s. That can change. And it can change if we all ask to get paid.
We need a comedy union. We, you know?
We've tried. I don't know, baby.
Yeah. I love at the end of Mexipino where you're talking about how you have lighters and you know, it's $5 for the lighter. And, you know, somebody was complaining and you cut the bit where you walk off.
Yeah.
You know, beautiful. It's
thank you.
Support the arts. My man HP Mendoza, who was my last ShoPowSho interview. He support the arts. Amazing director. I don't know if you know HP. Just support the arts. It's so important as creatives.
It is, and I think the arts are so fun. We see that as the value, when really like the value is paying rent. So make sure you can do both. And I think I want to put out there to everyone listening who's like, oh, I don't know, I do my thing, I don't get paid. It's like, you're worth it. You know what I mean? They're not paying you for the 20, 30, 45 minutes you're on stage. They're paying you for the 5, 6, 7, 8 years that it took of grinding of shows to get to that point where you could do a 45. So you're a value. You're wonderful. Get validated for it through a little bit of cash money.
Hell yeah. Well said. All right. I got a couple more before I let you go. I don't mind. I'm running a little bit into my other time, but I want to rep my man, Erik Escobar, just a little bit more because I got 2 big ones. And then hopefully with time permits, and I know Eric's going to have a lot of other cool stuff coming up. I'm going to have Erik back and we're going to give him his flowers and we'll have some more fun. But as we have other guests before, Erik, you may not know, when I do like this, my Oprah style interview, which we're doing right now, the next time we have a lot more fun. We're more in the present, but it's also just to build that authenticity, as we said, so people can know the amazing folks that are out here like yourself killing it. I want to go back to religion. One of the things I've noted as we were talking, how much religion has played into your life. For me, it's pulled me in and out here and there. I was like many other Filipinos, born, raised Catholic and, went to church all the time. I was in a church choir. I was doing all the things. But I had friends of other denominations. And also, as my life story went, religion kind of was the biggest thing where it separated. And it's also what's still separating now in today's world. It's, to me, where a lot of war and everything is starting at. But how did that play with you? And specifically in regards to, you're an artist as a creatives. To me, I've also seen that conflict of religion, especially with my comedian friends, because comedy, to me, we need to be able to laugh at ourselves and also poke fun of our the religious aspects of life and things. Can you just tell me how that infused for you and religion and all of that? Because, sometimes it's something we're told to stay away from, politics and religion. But to me, as a comedian, I want to be able to, knowing all my other comedian friends, I need to joke about that because you know what? We got to laugh at ourselves. We're not fucking perfect. Only the person that can judge us is that one upstairs.
Yeah.
Not the one, not the bloodline one, not the OTC, but the one.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think for me, if we're looking at religion, morality, the lessons, cool, great. The thing that I really loved and that really, played big roles in my life in religion was the community of it. You know what I mean? It was going to confirmation classes with the group of friends that you only see once a week for a few months. It was, I've always felt like the only thing, if you're at a job, the only thing that can bring you and your coworkers closer together other than liking the job is like not liking a boss. You know what I mean? Like if everyone doesn't like the boss, your team is going to be super tight and you're going to bond more. And I think for me, there were a lot of things that in religion, like I didn't necessarily agree with or that were like weird, but to hear other Catholics and hear other people also have those gripes, I think it brought us closer together. You know what I mean? It didn't separate us like, oh, I don't agree with that, or I don't know. It's like, no, like, yeah, let's have that discussion. Let's have those dialogues. And I think the sense of community is the strongest thing that really, it's just the thing that made me like being Catholic when I was younger. If it wasn't for going to a Christian school, I wouldn't have joined a worship band, which wouldn't have probably led to me playing in other bands, which probably wouldn't have led to me doing theater, which probably led to me doing stand-up. You know what I mean? Like, I love the person who I am today. Would I change anything in the past? No, because it got me to where I am today. A lot of creatives who are religious and who have that like, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? I think kind of like what you said, we're all trying our best. And I think that genuineness, that sincerity, that like, no, am I the best Christian, the best Catholic? No, not really. There's a lot of heart there. And I think that heart really speaks to people and can draw people in more to who you are when you show that you have those faults.
Agreed. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that, man.
We're
always very careful. We always try to straddle that line. You know what? We accept our faults. I may not be what Lola wants us to completely be, but I'm making those attempts, but I also have to be uniquely me. And kind of I'll just be that universal vessel that I want to be for everyone and not have any discriminations because that just always is like big for us. And it was, I don't know for you, but like, you know, that difficulty, because I've, you know, friends of LGBTQIA, we have that a lot in the Philippines as well. And it always was that hard thing as a Catholic, in different respects. But anyway, one of the things that I noted when I was also doing more research on you, my brother, to just be professionally prepared, not just like, I'm just going to throw all the flowers at my guy. I got to do some homework on Eric. I think I saw on LinkedIn, and we were talking about wrestling earlier. Did you do stuff with Lucha Underground? And did you actually wrestle yourself for a little bit, or what was the Lucha Underground thing?
Oh my God, this is like a Nardwuar moment. Oh man, I haven't looked at my LinkedIn in like 10 years.
Or was that just a joke? I don't know.
No, oh man, this is this is a great question. I love this. So I was very lucky to be as a comic. I was doing a lot of warm-up type stuff. I was trying to get into writing. I was trying to get more into film. I was a PA on some stuff. I ended up lucking into, I want to say it was season 4. Yeah, I was a production assistant, season 4, Lucha Underground. And baby, I had the best job. I had my hydrogen peroxide on my belt. I had my towel on the other side. And I was the blood wiper upper. So they would have, Lucha Underground's sick. It's brutal. They would have these like hardcore matches or Wild Matter People Bleed. And they would have maybe a 10, 15-minute break in between that and the next match. I would run out there, wipe it up, make sure it was clean enough. And then I would get out there and the wrestlers would come in. It was, working on Lucha Underground was the most exciting, wonderful experiences and memories I have. I love wrestling. I also worked for WoW for a little bit. Did a little bit of stuff for Impact. And it's all fun. But that specific energy that Lucha Underground brought in, that fan base, that wildness, the cinematic element to it, like we didn't see anything like that before, that. I'm so grateful that was a thing, and a lot of people who I worked on that show with, I still keep in touch with today. Something that's also really cool about it is, I don't know if a lot of people know, if you're a modern wrestling fan, Io Sky was wrestling in Lucha Underground forever. Pentagon Jr. was like the guy. Jeff Cobb, huge in Japan, but he was a huge wrestler there. There were so many, Brian Cage, there were so many acts there that were cool indie guys, but oh my Lord, now they're killing it. And the ones who are still doing it everyone's leveled up. You know what I mean? It's so wild to see those journeys happen as a wrestling fan.
So cool. So you met and hung out with and interacted with them while you were there, some of them?
Yeah, it was cool. I remember one of the coolest moments ever is one time I was on like badge check-in duty to make sure people could like go in. So we had a little speaker and I started playing the Gorilla Biscuits. Big fan of, hardcore, kind of early punk. I was playing Gorilla Biscuits, and Matt Cross, who played a character named Son of Havoc, walked by and he's like, "Is that Gorilla Biscuits? I love that band." And then we nerded out about punk music for 20 minutes. This wrestler who I love, who I think is so talented, we're going to talk about our favorite thing together. It's so cool. You put me in a room with a big celebrity, I'm cool. I'm not getting too starstruck. You put me in a room with an indie wrestler who had a great hardcore match back in 2006. Oh, I melt. And I melted around so many great talent there. Tommy Dreamer came through. It was so cool. It was so cool.
I love it. We got to do a wrestling specific episode in the future as well. I need to have you on KAYFABEYBABY, our wrestling podcast that we have on NRW, just to talk all things wrestling and experiences, man. Definitely want to chat it up with you on that.
Hell yeah. I feel like there's so many questions and things we've asked in this interview, and we have an hour, so I'm like, yeah, let me get my stuff in there. But there's so many things I also want to ask you that you've asked me, where it's like, what's your wrestling thing like? Oh, how did you get into stuff? So we definitely, in some way, shape, or form, we need a round 2, baby, whether it's in person, on a pod.
Definitely.
Hey, we'll make it happen.
Definitely. 2025, we're going to have more Erik Escobar. Erik, thank you for sharing the journey. I know there's a lot more to your story. We captured a couple of the different things, but before we go, I just want to highlight some new stuff as we head into 2025. And like I said, gonna have you on KAYFABEYBABY. We'll make those schedules work. We're also gonna highlight future projects, so you're coming back through on ShoPowSho. But let's close out the show for this specific episode for right now, because we're gonna have more. What's going on? What's the latest? Also throw them socials out there. I'm gonna have the links in the description below so people can follow you and do all the things. But let's close out with what you got going on, and then I'll have one final nerd question.
Ooh, I love it. Well, my Instagram is at Erik Escobar. That's Erik with a K. There's an Erik with a C, not me. There's an Erik who's a jazz magician, a music guy, not me. I'm this one. Look for this face. I love comedy. I'm constantly on the road. I have a beautiful, amazing 6-week-old newborn who has graced my life, and I'm more grateful for him than anything in the world. I love him so much. That being said, taking a little bit of time off the road. So follow my Instagram. You can see all the new shows in 2025 I'm doing. I know I'm hitting up Oregon. I know I'm going to Alaska. I'm going to a bunch of different places all around the country, but taking a little bit of a step back from the road so I can figure out fatherhood and get a nap in. Other than that, if you follow me on there, you can see all the fun stuff I'm coming up with. I was just on Angel, which you can catch on BET+. You can catch my TED Talk, How to Live a More Fulfilling Life, with humor, with comedy. And I have a really fun project coming out this December, which I cannot talk about. But if you follow me on my socials, you'll see what that is. And I'm very excited for y'all to check it out.
Yo, the amazing Erik Escobar in the building. Are you coming back out to DC in 2025?
I'm trying. I'm really trying. There's a run that books DC, and I want to say one of the Carolinas. It's a little bit of like you do this, you do that, you do that.
Yeah.
I am trying to piece together. I love DC. Y'all got great food. Y'all got great people. Y'all got an amazing zoo. Oh man, what a zoo! You got 1010 Zoo. I love it.
Okay.
Portuguese shout out too, but that zoo. Mwah.
Well, you come back out this way, we got to hang out because I'm in the DC area. So we definitely got to connect, grab some food, chill out, manifest. I'm also with some of the other comedian cats that I've had on. We've been talking possibly doing like a big ShoPowSho special event because I've had a ton of amazing comedians like yourself on and musical acts that we could do like a kind of a, what do you call it? A special with like music and comedy and all of that. We'll have to plan it up. That's a goal for 2025, 26, maybe.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll have that show at 8 p.m. We'll have dinner at 6 p.m. and then at noon you can meet me at the zoo. All right, I'm gonna go to the zoo. I love that zoo. Love it.
I love it. Final question, and then we'll get up out of here. Again, everybody, Erik's links are in the description below, and we'll have him back. This is my Kuya, man. This is Erik Escobar. If you could give a TED Talk on anything, it's always my final question. If you were to give a TED Talk on anything that you're super nerdy about, because this is Nerds Rule the World presents ShoPowSho, what could it be on? And it can't be what we already know about. We already know we're going to talk about wrestling. We know you could do TED Talk on wrestling. We know you know comedy, obviously. What is something that people may not know that you are super nerdy about? I've had people say that they could do tax law, which is really nerdy. That's really out there. It doesn't have to be the stereotypical nerdy stuff. It could be just like what you're super knowledgeable about that you could really go in depth on that people may not know that you are that nerdy about, that whatever that is. What could it be?
Okay, cool. I got a double answer.
Plants. We've had people like, I'm all about plants.
2 TED Talks. Do you mind if I double the TED Talk?
Let's go.
I get a tattoo every state I perform in. That's my thing. I'm up to 30 states, 4 different countries, including the States. So I'm on 3 extra different countries. And I feel like I don't know much about tattooing and how to tattoo, but the styles that I've seen, to go into a shop that's like, hey, we're a lettering shop. Like, oh, that's cool. Or to go into a shop and be like, hey, we do traditional. I think the styles of tattoos are so beautiful. And I would love to talk about like, oh, they're between like a traditional and a neo-traditional, the colors that go into Japanese tattoos and the rules that you can. I didn't know, like, if you're tattooing a dragon, fun fact, you got to tattoo the eyes last because that awakes the dragon. If you tattoo the eyes and then tattoo over the dragon, hella bad luck because you pissed off the dragon. You're hurting the dragon. He's alive. Stuff like that. I love those fun facts. Other TED Talk I would do, oh man, didn't have video games growing up. When I was maybe 27-ish years old, a buddy of mine ended up moving, gave me his PS3. I bought a little game called BioShock. And for about the next 4 or 5 years, I didn't buy another game. I would just play BioShock and BioShock Infinite and BioShock 2, but we don't got to talk about BioShock 2. I would just play those games relentlessly. So if you ever want to talk about Elizabeth and Booker or fighting a Big Daddy or how to best, I don't know, go through Fort Frolic, hit me up. I love BioShock. It was my first big tattoo. Big BioShock fan. Also, rumor has it there might be a show coming out for it on Netflix soon, which I'm so stoked for.
Hell yeah, dude. I love stuff like this. I love these little tidbits about certain people. And then when, as you know, as a filmmaker, creative, you know, especially like when it's like a certain IP, I could be like, yo, hey, Eric, man, they just sent me the screeners for fucking BioShock or something, right? And I could like, let's nerd out about that shit and let's talk about it. So I love that stuff. And tattooing, I've have some tattoos. I want to get more. My wife doesn't want me to get any more. But like, I want that, you know, that one Lola that we see in the Philippines that I think she was like on the cover of Time, like when they do that traditional stuff. Yeah. I heard now. I want that. I want to get a whole sleeve. And I would love to at least have her start it before she passes because she's like super old, and then maybe have somebody else finish it. But like, I want more tattoos, and I'm looking to actually do more tattoo cons in 2025. So I love that.
A couple experiences with people who've gotten tattooed by her. Interesting. Couple quick things. I was like, how much is it? Like, how many pesos?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's free, but they want donations.
Oh.
So. Like not donations in terms of money, but get like I don't even know if it's free. I don't want to talk wrong, but it's like, hey, bring like alcohol or gloves or supplies. And that's fascinating. Of course, they live up in the mountains. You know what I mean? It's a day hike together. Of course, like the supplies are more necessary than the stuff. I also heard that it's kind of cool because now she'll come in, super badass of a lady, come in, do a couple dots, do a couple things, and then she'll be like, oh yeah, Ate is gonna finish the rest. And like you'll have like, you know, one of her family members come and they'll like put more designs on it. So it's becoming like this beautiful family tradition where now it's her, but she's teaching the new generations how to branch off. It's cool. Let's go to the Philippines. Let's get some tattoos together. It'd be great.
Real talk. That is, I wouldn't mind that at all. Like just to have it started and the tradition, because we love our culture. We love our people. That is what I want. Like, I want that whole experience, and I would love her because she's such a legend in our community and a pillar. That's just so beautiful. Anyway, I could nerd out forever. The amazing Erik Escobar in the building. Links in the description below. I'm definitely going to see if Erik can't come on in 2025. Give him more flowers. Talk up new amazing projects like the one he couldn't really talk about. But you're going to find out about it when you head over to his social, when you follow him, and we'll get more details and we'll talk about it when he can talk about it. But that's probably be the first time I'll have Erik back so we can really dig into that. And we'll talk wrestling because we definitely got to talk more wrestling. Erik, it's been a pleasure, my brother. I appreciate you. Happy holidays, because we're recording right now in the midst of that. Congratulations on fatherhood. Again, patience. Love to you and your amazing wife. I love it, man. Thank you for sharing all of this with me, my friend.
Kuya P, salamat. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to hear more about you. And this is beautiful, man. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Definitely, everybody. The amazing Erik Escobar. I'm Kuya P. Mahal kita. Salamat. We out. All right, brother, there's a cut.
My dad says horrible things too. Like one time my dad called me Oriental. I'm like, Dad, it's 2021. We don't say Oriental anymore. Say Asian American. One time he called me heavyset. I'm like, Dad, we don't say heavyset. It's 2021. Call me plus sized or fat. All right, just call me fat, Dad. The thing that broke my heart, though, the thing that made me the most sad, a few weeks ago, my dad got mad at me. My very own father called me a pussy. My dad called me a pussy. I'm like, Dad, it is 2021. We don't call people pussy anymore. We call them millennials. All right? That is the correct name. Millennials are weird, man. If you talk to 31-year-olds, it's like you're talking to 31-year-olds, all right? We're always crying. We don't have jobs. It's very strange. But here's why millennials are weird. Millennials are weird because we were the first ones to grow up with Wi-Fi, social media, messed us up, all right? I can't do anything without my iPhone. I was pooping today. I was taking a poop, realized I didn't have my iPhone with me, and I started crying, all right? Started crying, freaked out, finished my business, and then I got out of the pool. It was the worst birthday party I've ever been to. Absolutely horrible.
Let's go. In a 1, 2, 3.